All right, so we are going to answer a question today that I get asked constantly by folks who are looking to make their move out to Tacoma, Washington. My name is Austin from the Titus Robertson Group and the Living in Tacoma, Washington YouTube channel. And I'm really excited about this conversation today because so many folks reach out to us. They don't know whether they should buy a house when they relocate or if they should rent when they relocate. So if that is something that you're kind of swirling around in your brain, don't worry, we're going to answer that question right here, right now. Let's go. Hey, Chris and our team, we're getting reach outs every day of people that are looking to make their move to Tacoma. So if that's you, shoot us a phone call, text, or an email. And if you do want to know what's going on in the local Tacoma market, hit that subscribe button. So Tacoma is a fantastic, wonderful place to live. I relocated here from the Midwest several years ago, and I have never looked back. So whether you're like me and you are coming on your own, or maybe a school has moved you here, maybe you're in the military and JBLM is pulling you to the area, you're definitely in for a treat because we have fantastic outdoors, amazing culture, and there is so much to do here that it makes for a really cool life. Now, all that stuff is great and it's in your future, but right now you're sitting at home and, let's be honest, whatever state you're in, and you're trying to figure out this one basic question: do I rent or do I buy when I come to Tacoma? So things like the rental market and the housing market they're ever evolving. They're always changing no matter what we are doing in our personal lives, and those markets are different across the country. Whatever's happening at home is probably different than what's happening out here in Western Washington. Now, over the pandemic, we saw a gigantic surge in rents, but those have, for the most part, leveled off a little bit. And so we're seeing some stability driven across the rental landscape. Now, where there is some decline is typically in apartment housing. So single family rentals and apartment housing are usually viewed as two different like rental markets in general. And there's a huge influx of apartment complexes coming out with a ton of rental availability. Now I have a family of 7, so an apartment for me would never ever make sense. But with the huge influx of apartments, that means that rents are being driven down. However, on the other hand, when it comes to renting a house in Tacoma, that story paints itself very, very differently. In fact, when it comes to single family homes for rent, there's been a huge decrease in availability, which has actually caused the single family housing rental market to increase in prices. So what are some benefits of renting here in Tacoma? I would say the first one is really got to be the flexibility. Logistically, whenever you have to go and you have to sell a home, there's just a lot that goes into that. There's a long time process that goes into that. And if you're in a rental, once your lease is out, you're free to move about the area. If you're not sure you're going to be here for more than a couple of years, if you have careers that make you move very, very often, I think this flexibility is something that you should really bank in that rental column. Next, the limited maintenance responsibility is a huge plus for renters. Now, obviously, look, if you don't have a great landlord, you're probably not getting a lot of stuff fixed. But if you're renting and the hot water heater goes out, you're not on the hook for the $1,000 water heater. You call the soup, you call the landlord, whoever it is, they come, they replace it, and now you have a new hot water heater. I've seen some renters go as far as having landlords come replace light bulbs, water filters, unclogged toilets. Look, they will do it. It's absolutely wild. And having that flexibility when it comes to maintenance not only saves you the time of fixing or repairing an item, but it also helps you when it comes to the cost of, let's be honest, those supplies, those repairs, and your time. I think there's also a lower risk whenever you're renting. There's just something about being able to move whenever you need to. And on the financial end, let's be honest, there's changes in property tax, there's changes in the cost of homeowners insurance. We've seen insurance all across this country just go through the roof. And if you own a property, you're responsible for paying those costs. If you're a renter, then that's not on you. That's on the landlord. Don't catch yourself stuck when it comes about fluctuations in the real estate market or even interest rates. Property values can go up and down. We've seen a huge increase. There are also decreases around the country. And if you're renting, then you're not at risk to any of those changes should they swing more towards a negative side. And lastly, the biggest positive that I can really think of when it comes to renting is your opportunity to check out more neighborhoods. And when we moved out here, we ended up traveling out here multiple times. I flew out several times to nail down the right house, to get all the paperwork done, get everything just squared away. And while I love our neighborhood, while I've really enjoyed it, I can tell you that certainly there are instances where I think maybe if I had maybe a little more flexibility, we might have chosen to live somewhere else. If you're tied down to a mortgage on a home, then it's going to be several years possibly before you gain enough equity to put that house on the market and sell it. So having that freedom of 1-year lease, come out here, get your feet underneath you, and then move about as you more see fit for your family, I think is a gigantic advantage for renting when you move out here to the greater Tacoma area. So what are some tips that I can give you? Well, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. Now, we do not necessarily work with rentals. We are not a property management company. We are in the business of residential brokerage services for real estate. So helping people buy and sell homes. But we can always possibly connect you with a good landlord or maybe a property management company that can get you situated in the right place. Now, my next tip, especially when moving out here, is don't rely on online portals. I've seen it all too often where Zillow and other websites will leave rentals up for a lot longer. What they're doing is they're just trying to get people's data to sell it off, or maybe a landlord has got another property they're looking to rent out, and so they're gonna keep that property on the website a little bit longer to see if they can get you, grab an application, try to move you into a different space. So reach out directly to property management companies in the areas that you're considering living in. See what they actually have available. Get one-on-one and have conversations with those property managers. This is the only fail-safe way to go about renting when you're moving across the country. You've got to have somebody advocating for you 100%. Also, if you can, because more than likely if you're renting your loan a little more of a budget, I would try to schedule any virtual tours as possible. With a lot of our clients from YouTube or the military that relocate from JBLM or the tech sector up north, we will go out and we will do virtual tours for clients who are states away. I would ask property managers to do the exact same thing for you. This will give you a little bit of an advantage. One, you can fill out an application after you've decided that the property is something that you're absolutely interested in. You can lay eyes on it, and then you're not getting beat out by somebody local because in essence, you've seen the property, you put the application in, even though your state's away. All right, let's flip that coin. What about we make the decision to buy? What does that look like as an out-of-state buyer? Sure, there's still the same process of getting pre-approved, looking at houses, going under contract, inspection, appraisal, closing, all of that. But we also have to throw in the fact that you could definitely be states away and you're moving a very long distance to a new and sort of foreign land. So how do we make that the easiest? Well, number one, you reach out to us. Like I keep saying this, you gotta give us a call, shoot us a text, whatever you want to do, whatever's your preferred source of communication, so that you don't make a huge mistake, end up in the wrong neighborhood, and hate where you live. So that's step number one. We'll get you connected with one of our amazing local lenders out here. That is a huge advantage to buying out in Washington, is that people have a lot of respect for a local lender, a local realtor. It goes a very, very long ways. And you'll notice this culturally is like we don't go too far out of our area when we're servicing clients. We stay pretty much in our hub of the greater Seattle Tacoma area. Once we've gotten that pre-approval done, we're going to set up a search for you so you can see properties online in real time. Just like we talked about on the rental side with Zillow and those other places, their main purpose is to sell your information to real estate agents. So what we want to do is we want to get you tied directly into the multiple listing service, so you're seeing homes in real time. The next thing is probably virtually touring some of these properties / setting up a time to come out here and tour the area, see what neighborhoods make sense. And we have a full process for this. We have a way we do this every single time, and it works amazing. So we'll get you through that process. Other than that, it's really just deciding how you're going to move. And that really doesn't separate whether you're renting or if you're buying, frankly. And don't worry, if you've got a house to sell wherever you're from, we can definitely coordinate those closings together to make life nice and easy for you. So what are some advantages to buying a house when you move out to Tacoma? So first of all, I would say if you're planning on being here for 2 years, this is the route that you need to go. Number one reason I believe is equity building. This is like the most amazing forced savings account that you could ever have. We actually just had some clients, Mason and Sabrina, that moved here about 2.5 years ago. They ended up buying a cute little house down in Olympia for about $450,000. Now it's only been 2 years. There's been no major development in their areas, anything along those lines, but due to some extreme changes in family circumstances, they had to move back out of state, back home. While it's only been 2 years, their house sold for over $530,000. So even minus the fees that they paid for, their sales tax on the house, the realtor fees, all of that, they are still walking away with a giant check in their pocket. Now they paid into their mortgage for a couple of years, but they gained equity. In return was a check. If they had just rented a house, they would have simply just spent all the money they had spent, and they would have made nothing when the situation had came up and they had to move. Now, hopefully you're not moving every 2 years, and of course over time that equity just grows and grows and banks, and there are plenty of advantages to having that net worth plus a possibility of having cash to pull from if you were to need it in the future. The second thing, I think there's really an unequal movement between the cost of your housing and your income. Let's say you bought a house 20 years ago. Now you had your mortgage payment locked in at that time and you were making X dollars. If you live in your house, let's just say the average amount of time, which is 13 years for an American now. If you look at your income over the last 13 years, look at how much it has climbed in that time. And your house payment has stayed the same. So there is an unfair and uneven division of your income versus your housing cost. So short of something crazy like a big tax increase, which we're at about 1% here, your housing for the most part is pretty well fixed. And over time, you're going to see that scale start to move where the cost of housing stays about the same, but your income's going to keep going up. So your cost of housing gets considerably lower. And to me, that's probably one of my favorite advantages of home ownership. Also think the control over your home environment is crazy important. I really like the uniqueness of being able to decorate my home however I want, turn it into whatever visions that me and my wife have. As our kids move out, maybe a new room becomes an office, but we can paint the walls for our children. We can decorate it however we see fit to us. Whereas if we were in a rental, it's basically white walls. And let's be honest, if you put a hole in anything, you're gonna lose that deposit. So having the freedom to be creative in your own property is a gigantic advantage of buying a house. And that's just, and lastly, just that like security of the deep financial investment, I think is so important. You know, with a rental, you're never really gaining that equity we talked about earlier. But beyond the equity itself, just that peace and security that you've built, that you've put that inside of your financial situation as you move to retirement, the spread of net worth from someone that owns their property versus doesn't is stark. And it actually makes me really sad when I see folks that have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in value versus those that have like 10 to 20,000 because they never took the time to buy a house. And listen, I'm not saying it's like all sunshine and rainbows by any means. Like, I'm not just here to tell you this is the one-stop shop you got to buy. There are definitely concerns for an out-of-state buyer when it comes to purchasing a home. I mean, how do you navigate a market in an area that you have no idea anything about? I mean, well, for one, I've got a lot of videos on here that you can watch, so you can kind of get an idea of some of these areas. We're also going to help with setting up that search in the MLS. That's going to help. You're going to plan your trip out here to come look at some of the neighborhoods, so that should help. Logistically, moving across the country, well, listen, we've done it. I got to tell you, if we can do it, then anybody can do it. And I have a game plan that's perfected between myself and what I experienced and what a lot of our other clients have experienced now to help you move more smoothly than any of us did. So logistically, we're gonna help you out there. We'll address those concerns as they come. So deciding now, which one makes the most sense? I think there's a couple things that you really need to sit down and you need to consider for yourself. What does my life look like? How long am I gonna be here? How long am I gonna work at the same place? I don't have the answer to these questions for you. I can steward the process and get you where you need to go when you're ready to buy a house. But I am not in a position to tell you that this is the time to buy a house. In fact, I once heard a great man say, if you have to ask me if you're ready to buy a house, then you're not. And I think that to be very, very true. So all we can really do is look at the situations around us and the markets around us and decide which one makes the most sense. So some of the hardships that you're gonna face, yeah, the real estate market here is probably more expensive than where you're coming from. Short of California, maybe some areas of Miami, whatever, you're gonna be looking at a little higher price tag. And I've noticed that my folks that come from the East Coast and the South especially have a really hard time kind of swallowing that. The second part is we don't have a super slow real estate market. Now, regardless of what CNN says on a macro level, on the micro level locally, homes here are moving fast. Homes in this year are moving so fast that people are waiving contingencies again. We are seeing multiple offers, which means that you've got to be on the ball when it comes to offering on a house. And this is, of course, we come in to help here. On the flip side, with rentals, there's been a lot of legislation that's came into play that has necessarily been designed to protect renters in the state of Washington, more specifically in the Tacoma area. But with that said, it's caused sort of a weird flip with a lot of the landlords. Now, landlords have to be more careful with who they rent to because laws are no longer in their favor. So some of the things that we're seeing there are very, very strict qualifications. You need to make 3 times what the rent is gonna be. Credit score's gotta be a 620. You need to have been at the same job for 2 years. You've got to have verifiable, good rental history. If you're moving from out of state, this can be a really hard one to fix because you've not worked in the area for 2 years. Landlords here won't even let you pay a year's worth of rent up front because the risk is too great that you'll never leave or you'll cause a problem, and then they will have to handle all of that. Not only that, but because of these constrictions, more and more landlords are selling their properties and they are moving them out of the state of Washington to areas where their money is a little bit better protected and they have a little bit more security for their rental business. Because out here in Washington, most properties are not owned by big banks. They're owned by mom and pop investors. People that have 1 to 2 total properties is the primary makeup of landlords here. So they don't really have the money to fight and mess with it. And as they're selling their homes and they're moving them to other places, what we're seeing is an increased demand for rentals, and we're seeing a shrinking pool of available single family rentals, which of course, supply and demand causes those prices to go up, and it's harder to get in. Man, it is a little rough, but you can navigate whichever way makes the most sense for you. Here's what I'm gonna tell you. We've connected with folks that have rented homes here in the Greater Tacoma area and folks that have bought homes in the Greater Tacoma area. There is no wrong answer. It's whatever works for you and yours. We just want to be good stewards of those situations for you. Look, if you're looking to move out here and rent, the best piece of advice I can give you is to reach out personally to a good property management company and let them make those amazing connections to find you a good rental home. If you're looking to make a move out here, either invest or build equity or start life whole and buy a home, again, just reach out to us. We've got the game plan put together and we can help you be successful no matter where you're at in the United States. That is our perfect dream. I just want to encourage you to come out to the Pacific Northwest. Enjoy the lush greenery, the mountains, the water, the kind people. No matter what the situation is, it's a beautiful place to live. And from me personally, someone that moved from Missouri out here, I promise you your life will be better and it will be blessed if you come out here and you just take in all of it, whether you're renting or buying. Just make the decision that makes the most sense for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Until next time, I cannot wait till you're out here so we can show you around. What? All right. And once you've, if you look at, also think there, we can